Well, things got a little out of hand. I'm not even sure if this will be a separate episode, if it will be part of another episode, if it will be at all. Um, okay, what happened? Well, first of all, this is the body shell, so it's pretty much stripped down. This bit it's already done, so I swapped this shaft with the metal one. I cleaned this mechanism, so the door latch. I replaced the foam here. The foam in these channels will be replaced at the end after everything else is back in the camera. I was quite ready to put the camera back, so I had everything ready, and problem is that when I got this mechanism inside the camera, the winding was horrible. So it was like grinding coffee, absolutely horrible. And then I spent a couple of hours trying to understand what was going on, and I came to a couple of conclusions. The first conclusion is that if this assembly, which is the actual film advance assembly, is not tightened in all 3 points, I only had it screwed down with 2 screws, 1 and 2. This one was not put back because this one also goes through this piece, so the exposure meter button. Since I already had 2 points, in my mind it was enough to keep it in position. Well, it wasn't enough. Every time I tried to wind the camera, the mechanism, so the whole assembly would shift ever so slightly like this, so it would rotate counterclockwise, and the meshing of the gears was not correct anymore. That was the first problem. The second problem apparently was here and here. So the two strips, the 2 strips of foam that I used were too thick. I think I used this kind of foam, so it is quite thick, especially compared to what I found inside the camera, which was something very, very thin. But this was the only kind of foam that I had. And for some reason, even if this assembly was screwed down all the way in all 4 points, so in all 4 screws, it didn't sit correctly. I will try to improvise. I don't know how and what I will use, but for sure it has to be thinner. I don't think I can slice this foam to the correct thickness, so I'll need to find something that's already in the correct shape. Alright, so after I removed those two strips of foam, and after I tightened the advance mechanism in all 3 screws, the camera started to work okay-ish, but still not good enough, or at least not as good as I think it should work. This is in fact a Contax RTS, only branded Yashica, a bit of a difference in electronics, so it's pretty much a cheaper version of the Contax. Now the Contax cameras were known for being extremely smooth in operation. Some people claim that the Contax 139Q or Quartz is actually smoother than Leica's, and this was nowhere near that kind of smoothness. So it was a lot less smooth than any other SLR that I have. It was a lot less smooth than a Zorky 4K, and well, that says a lot. Of course, a Zorky 4K, if serviced correctly, is surprisingly smooth, but still no benchmark camera. And therefore, my decision was to take it apart again, even more in depth than I had already done. So I took this bit completely to pieces. Um, I took this bit to pieces. This is the clutch of the take-up spool. And I um, think, I'm not very sure, but I think my decision of using dry moly or dry tungsten disulfide as a lubricant was bad. And probably I should have known better, since all camera manufacturers use grease to lubricate. Well, I shouldn't be reinventing the wheel, I suppose. So, plan is to, at least for today, get all of these parts back together. Hopefully I will get them back together. Taking them apart was not filmed, so in case I get into trouble, I will only have the exploded parts diagrams to rely on. But pretty much they were laid down in order, and some of them I've already taken apart and put back a couple of times, so it should be okay. These parts, so from here to here, are all from this part, from this mechanism, and it's a stack of different shims, spacers, a spring, and so on. This little bit is obviously the frame counter gear. These are all from, actually, these, so from here to here, are all from this assembly. This part I've taken down from here, because it's very difficult to put this inside and take it out of the shell with them in position. So I decided to take them out. I'm not really sure, to be honest, what they do, what's the purpose of this stack of pieces, because the camera works without them regardless, but for sure there is a reason they are there. This is the motor drive gear and bracket, and these little bits are from the bottom of the camera here. Alright, I will not explain what I'm doing, because I will try to take the sequence out of the video and make a time-lapse, so explaining would make the time-lapse even longer. There isn't much to explain. It's not really that difficult to take apart and put back. The only part that will be a little bit tricky is to get these back in position, because there is a spring on this shaft and it has to be tensed the right way, so when you advance the lever or the lever, it will return in position the right way, so it's not over tightened and it's not loose either. Also, these little three springs and these little three half dome bearings, I don't know what they are, together with this gear and this piece and this top, whatever it is, and a little screw, these are all the one-way clutch. So when you advance the lever, it only goes one way. So you advance. When you let go, two halves of this assembly, so this part can rotate freely without turning the gear. When you advance, it locks in place and it rotates the gear. So it's a clutch. All right, that being said, Well, Godspeed, right? Let's go. Well, it's been one hell of an adventure. I finally managed to get it to this point, and it was, I guess, it was a very good learning experience. Still not working as smoothly as I hoped for, but it's okay. I really have no idea what else I could do to improve the feeling. Maybe it's just old age, maybe, I don't know, some pieces are a bit worn. I have the feeling that this assembly is a bit better, so a bit smoother, but this assembly has a couple of worn teeth on this gear. Apparently it doesn't really affect operation, so it worked just fine, but I decided um, I would just keep this one. Besides, these shims, actually not these four, but the four underneath this assembly, were specifically chosen for this mirror box on this body. And maybe it wouldn't have had any ill effect in practice or in real life, but I decided not to complicate things. Otherwise, I would have had to check the focusing on the film plane and then adjust the focusing screen, most likely. The thing is, so there are two sets of shims. One set is this one, and another set is beneath the mirror box itself. The lens mount is on this piece, so this piece goes here. That means that the distance from the flange to the film plane is given by these four, right? Because the rails are part of the body, and therefore this is the only variable from the lens flange to the film plane. Okay. Therefore, this issue was a non-issue as long as I used the original front plate, which was not that one, and the correct order of these shims, I would have been okay. But the other set of shims matter for actual focusing in the viewfinder. So thicker shims would practically take the focusing screen further away, or actually closer to the subject. In order to adjust for that, there are 1, 2, 3 little screws, and as a word of caution, if you are to remove the prism and the frame, so this frame that keeps the prism in place, once you take off or take out these black screws that actually keep the frame in place, the other screws are no longer kept under pressure, so they are loose, they are wobbly. So pretty much any little nudge on the screws can and probably will turn them. If you turn them, this whole frame will not sit as it left the factory. And these adjustment screws are actually they have a seat. So this little bit is the seat of the screw on which the frame sits, obviously. So if you turn the screw, that seat will go up or down. Okay, that's one aspect to be aware of. Regarding taking apart and putting back this bit, so the advanced assembly, the advanced mechanism, it killed me. So I managed to get it right once, the first time I tried to disassemble it with one of the spare assemblies, and I managed to put it back together quite easily. So I said, okay, no problem. Well, when time came to put this one back together, I think 30-40 minutes, so a lot of sweat and pain. Only to realize at the very end that the correct way, or the easiest way, was to use actually the advance lever to keep a gear in a specific position so that the two halves can mate together. That was a freak show. Okay, what else? Yeah, after putting this back, so the mirror box and shutter assembly, I realized that it would fire, so it would fire, but it would only do it once because the cycle of operations was not completed, barely, and therefore I couldn't wind the camera again. And it took me many hours to figure it out. It seems that one of the light baffles that I used beneath the mirror box, which in I think the first part of this video, if I will stitch it up as I think I will. So in the first part of the video I said that initially I used this kind of foam, which is rather thick because it's the thinnest that I have, and the camera was acting up, so I took the foam off the camera, and then the camera started working correctly, but I had to put something there, so I went back to the same foam, and eventually I realized that the problem was here. So this is part of the mirror ledge that has to go down to this point in order for the camera to work. If it's stuck a bit higher up, so like this, a bit towards the front of the camera, like this, the cycle is not completed and the camera is locked. And I realized that if I was loosening one of the screws that keeps the whole assembly in place, I usually only used two screws, one here and one here, so diagonally positioned, so I wouldn't have to screw and unscrew 4 screws every single time. So my observation was that if I were loosening this one just slightly, the camera would work. That was the conclusion. So my intuition told me that I had to shorten the strip of foam. So the strip of foam, let me get another body. Initially I tried to mimic the placement of these two strips. So there is one strip here that is very narrow and one strip there, and both strips are placed within the cutouts. You probably can't see it in the video, but there is a lip here, here and here. So actually the casting has a cutout, a very shallow cutout, both on the upper side and on the lower side. And this strip of foam is inside the cutout, which kind of makes sense. But the mirror box, so let's say I take this mirror box and I put it in here. The mirror box wouldn't seal correctly if the foam was not going over this lip. So what I did, I used my strip of foam that kind of overlaps the lip just slightly, and eventually I had to shorten it, like, I don't know, a couple of millimeters from here, and then things started to work again. Probably because my foam was thicker than the original one, the excess material on this side, so this little excess of material would actually interfere with something in the mechanism. I don't know what is that something, because I kept looking around here and nothing is protruding, nothing would touch that foam, but something clearly was not right. Maybe because of the thickness of the foam in that position, being close to this screwing point, it would simply not sit flushly or not sit flush to the body. And it is extremely sensitive to malposition. So if this is the correct position or placement of the mirror box, if you slightly shift it, if you shift it even a little bit, it will jam. So yeah, that was the problem. Hopefully I got all the screws back, because my notes stopped at some point. So mirror box, bottom screws, upper screws, and then shutter speed assembly. Chrome short front, chrome long left, back, black plus spacer right, back. So the screws for this piece were the last screws that I actually noted in my notebook. And I did take out quite a bit of parts afterwards, but I tried to work very localized. So I would take apart a little assembly, put all the pieces in order, like in the beginning of this video, where this assembly was scattered around the mat. A problem is, and this is maybe a word of advice, the problem is that since I kind of mixed and matched and disassembled bits from the spare cameras before trying to do the same on this camera, probably I have lying around here some screws that are not from this one, are from the spare ones, like all of these. For instance, this one is from this one. So self-timer, these two little screws, black screws, are from that one. A couple of chrome screws, I have no idea where they came from. These 4 screws, I have no idea where they came from. So I got a bit sloppy and disorganized, and I might pay a price for that. I know for sure that this little spring is from this part that pushes the frame counter little gears left and right. So I'll just throw it there. This screw, I don't know. This one, I don't know. This one, I don't know. This one, yes, I know. It's the release, the button release pin. This little bit of wire broke pretty much, so I replaced the whole bit because I would have to strip some of the isolation, and then probably the length would be too short. I'll just put it there. These two springs, I don't really remember where they came from, but since there are two, I probably need one of them here. Oh damn. I'll figure it out, hopefully. This one is the shutter speed selector, and kind of that's it. The rest of the parts are in the box. Now I'm stressed about the little spring because I really don't remember where it came from. I'll try to backtrace a bit, maybe I can remember. Anyhow, so yeah, this is the situation right now, and hopefully tomorrow I will start my the part that I fear the most, and that's putting the electronics back, rerouting all the wires. Hopefully I won't have to mess around with the mirror box anymore, and then I will stick a battery in it and cross my fingers and hope it lights up. We'll see how it works. Anyway, it was a really good learning experience because it forced me to go a lot more in depth than I maybe wanted initially, but that's okay. That's how we learn. There are still a lot of things that I don't understand, so pretty much this is pretty much a mystery. I mean, not a mystery in details. I know the principle of operation, I kind of know which lever does what, but I would like to really understand the way these gears mesh, because there is also a possibility of adjusting the timing between the two curtains, and I have no idea how that's done, but I will probably take apart the other one, the third one, the third mirror box, which has the biggest flaws, let's say. So this gear is really worn in that one. It also lacks the mirror, and it also has an aperture indicator. The aperture indicator in the viewfinder is broken, so that one is pretty much useless. I could actually take it apart altogether and I don't know, and put it back and see if it still works, because it is working. I mean, I can arm it just like this one, and I can release it and it works, but it wouldn't work on a camera. So maybe I will do that if I still have the nerve to go through all of these little screws and springs. Okay, yeah, see you next time, and maybe the next episode will be the last, conclusions, and hopefully a working camera. Good night.